and welcome to How to Deal When the Shit Gets Real podcast. I'm Rietta.
And I'm Connie. And today we're just two crazy cousins that are talking about change.
Because, we're all dealing with change, especially right now because shit is cray.
Yep.
We just want it to change back to normal.
And it's a lot of changing. It's like every month. It's like, okay, we're going to do this now this. I'm like, are restaurants even open? What am I doing? What can I go and do? Because everything is constantly changing.
What am I allowed to do? Which is a weird thing to say as an adult.
I know. It really is. And it even changes like from county to county because where I'm at, none of the restaurants are open except unless you're taking out. Mm-hmm. And then like if you go like not even 10 minutes away, all the restaurants are open because they don't care about the rules. And the mayor even said, we don't care. All of our restaurants are open. Come and get it,
I honestly don't blame them. If I owned a restaurant at this point, I would be telling the state to go F themselves because I'm not going to go under just because you want me to close. Like, this is my business. This is my livelihood. But that's a topic for another day.
Yep. Now we're just talking about how to deal with these crazy ass changes.
And Connie had a little run-in with change and trying to bring something up in the fam. So it was a good topic. And since Christmas is coming, why don't you go ahead and start there?
So basically, I'm trying very hard to get a Christmas tradition changed from the morning of Christmas to Christmas Eve because people are now my siblings are now starting to have kids. It's increasingly more difficult. You don't have as much time in the morning because if we're doing all of our present opening in the morning, we then have to rush over to grandma's and we're almost always late versus just taking your time. You also really don't have the time to take your time opening up gifts in general. It's just kind of all like, okay, guys, fast as you can, like, let's get this done. Like, how is that enjoyable? Mm-hmm. And pretty much for years, there have been a few people who have whined and moaned about it being in the morning. Now, my mom says it's not too early. It's at like 8 o'clock. But to get there at 8 o'clock, you also have to get up, get ready to go like to the party afterwards. Not like you can just arrive in PJs and be like, whatever, doesn't matter. Mm-hmm. I have to like wake up, put on my makeup, do my hair. And so, like, okay, you're really talking about us getting up at like 5:30 in the morning. Mm-hmm. Because me and Tom want to open up our gifts to each other.
Right.
And then get ready, et cetera, et cetera. And then for other family members who have babies, I'm like, Mom, this is not sustainable. We're not going to be able to do this for much longer. Mm-hmm. So like, let's change it. And I talked to her again about it. She was like, oh yeah, maybe we'll see. And then she was like, nope, I'm milking this for as long as possible. I'm like, no, Mom, you need to change. And this year is the easiest one to do it because the other party that's normally Christmas Eve that she likes going to doesn't happen anymore. So you might as well just have our family over Christmas Eve and we can all hang out as a family.
Yeah, and you guys can hang out as long as you want, and you can take your time, like you said. You could even have a little dinner if you wanted, whatever.
Mm-hmm, exactly. You don't have to be rushing everything.
Yeah, but I certainly would not be getting up at 5:30 in the morning on Christmas. No, thank you.
That's what I've had to do for the past few years, and it's fine. Me and Tom wake up early as it is, but I'm like, okay, it's kind of time to change. Like, and right now is the perfect time.
Yeah. Might as well just change it. So that's the reason Connie is obviously using this story, just in case somebody's not following along with us out there, is the resistance to change.
Yes, I know. And I will probably still keep talking to her about it until literally Christmas Eve to try and get it in her head that this needs to change because she's very, very resistant to it.
Have you guys just like literally gone to her and said, like, listen, we all agreed it's up to you. You're outvoted. It's moved to Christmas Eve.
We should do that.
That's what I would do. I'd be like, we all voted.
Hate us for that, though.
Well,
And see,
she'll get over it.
The boys are too complacent. The only people that care is probably me, is the girls, me, and then my two sister-in-laws. So, like, I don't know if she would even care. I don't know. She'd be like, no, this is
Okay.
what it is, take it or leave
Well,
it.
just
I
an
don't know.
idea. It was just an idea. Like, if you could be like, listen, mom, like, we all voted. We all want to move it. I'm sorry
Okay.
you've been outvoted. It's going to
Yeah.
Christmas Eve.
Well, and apparently 3 other people, including myself, have told her this needs to change.
Right. But I'm just thinking, like, maybe if you guys all did it, you did it all together and said, listen, we voted. It's done. But
Yeah, but we're never in the same room as each other. You know how it is.
do you have a group text message with everybody in it?
Maybe. I don't want her to feel bombarded and forced.
Yeah, I get that.
I have to change it somehow for it to be her idea.
Well, I'm sure you'll figure out something. You've got a couple weeks left, so.
I talk to her every day, so I can bring it up every day.
There you go.
That's my plan. Be like, come on, Mom.
What did they always say? The squeaky wheel gets the oil.
Yeah, I'm trying, So, talking about change, you, Missy, are the one who goes pretty through the most change. Does that like give you anxiety? How do you deal with it?
It's probably actually been really good for my anxiety because it's going to happen whether I want it to or not. So, I've come to the point now where I just pretty much roll with the punches because if you don't, it's going to suck. We always joke in like the Marine Corps, we say Semper Gumby, because it's stay flexible, forever flexible, because things are always changing. Like even with him coming home soon, I've already gotten 3 emails of the flights changing, the time that they're coming in changing, what we're allowed and not allowed to do. So
wow,
it's constantly changing, and I'm just like, okay. So
well,
at this point, I pretty much just expect the change, and then if it doesn't change, then it's like, oh, okay, cool.
Actually, that's like one of the top ways to deal with change is basically like always expect change to happen. Never expect anything to like stay constant. Because if you're expecting the change, it's not going to be surprising. You're not going to be as resistant. And just as you said, you kind of just roll with the punches. It doesn't amp up your anxiety because you know it's going to happen.
Right, exactly. And I try to stay positive too, because I mean, how many people can say that they've lived in Hawaii and lived in California? And, like, yeah, I've experienced a lot of changes, but I've experienced a lot of awesome things also. So we always try to look at the positive. I, of course, worry about Jackson more than anything because it's harder on him because he's constantly cycling through friendships because not only do we move, but the friends here, where we are move. So just in the year and a half that we've been here, he's cycled through like 3 sets of friends.
Oh, no, that's awful.
Yeah, so it can be kind of hard, but he's pretty dang resilient, and he talks to me about it, which is good. I'm sure that'll change as he becomes a teenager, but at least now he talks to me about it.
Has he like become like pen pals or something with any of his friends that are moving?
Yeah, actually the last couple sets that I've moved, we have 2 addresses, and it's perfect timing because he's working on writing and all that stuff in school. So it's a good excuse to practice his writing and to stay in touch with his old buddies.
Oh, that's nice. Keep the friendship going until he's allowed to have Facebook because he's way too young for that,
And, yeah, well, and apparently Facebook isn't the thing anymore. Like the new generation is doing Instagram and TikTok, so Facebook will probably become the MySpace eventually.
Probably. It already has for me, so I see that.
Yeah, exactly. So, and it's experienced so many changes. When we were moving out here, we originally got orders to go to North Carolina. So we were already looking at houses and we were set to go there. And then it was like, oh, just kidding. Surprise. You're going to Hawaii. And it was such a total flip and such a total change that we were like, well, good thing we didn't buy a house.
Yeah, really. Holy crap.
I would have been more upset if we were like already in escrow for a house, and I'd have been like, are you guys gonna pay for the money that I'm gonna lose in the house that I already bought?
Yeah, really. Oh my gosh. But yeah, you're like trying to like stay positive. That's another one of like the most like used tips for like accepting change. And it's not actually necessarily like, oh, just stay positive. There's actually kind of like two. One is to like write and focus on your values, and you can even like write them down instead of the fear, and like that'll help you like accept the change if it's within your values basically.
Okay, that makes sense.
And then it's just like finding like the good and like the humor of any like change or situation.
I like
So like they
that.
kind of go hand in hand.
Yeah, I like that. I like finding the humor in the situation because we were definitely doing that. Like, oh, good thing we didn't buy a house, but now we get to go live in paradise. So it was kind of like, all right.
And like you've said before, like, oh, this is my honeymoon. Like I didn't get a honeymoon, so now I get like a year-long honeymoon basically in Hawaii.
Yep, exactly. And we got to go stay at the hotel from Forgetting Sarah Marshall, and I've done so many hikes. So it's definitely been finding the positive, finding the humor, finding the reasons to be happy about the situation, which can be hard, especially when the situation is harder. You know, if it came down, I'm trying to think of like a good example. Like in this situation, like in military situation, like if your spouse, heaven forbid, didn't come home, obviously that's a giant change, and that would be a lot harder to just stay positive about. It would be more
Oh,
of
for
surrounding
sure.
yourself with people that are there
Love
for
you.
you and to take care of you and love you. Yeah, so it would be a different type of way of handling it. So it depends on the change. Obviously, that's a very extreme change.
Yes, a lot. That is a very extreme change.
But just wanted to give an example that shows like, yeah, there's situations where you can't necessarily, at least at the beginning, stay positive, but you have those people around you that can do it for you.
Yeah, and even for that one, it again goes to like some of the ways to deal with change. One in the article that I read was basically you accept your past, like the past with your husband. I
Mm-hmm.
mean, it would take a while. Like, don't get me wrong,
Yes.
it would take a while, but you accept the past, and then now you look towards the future and what you want in life, and change it that way, type of deal.
Yeah.
Like to be able to accept it a little bit more.
Yeah, I love that. It's such a great way to look at it. Like, yes, something major happened to you, but that doesn't, mean that you can't fight for your future. And I know I saw
Exactly.
in that article, Connie had shared an article with me about this topic. And they, in that section that you're talking about, they brought up Viktor Frankl, which I actually just finished reading his book. Viktor Frankl was a psychologist or a psychiatrist. I'm sorry, I'm not sure which one, that survived the death camps. And that was something that like he talked about. He lost all of his family. He was the only one that survived. But he still made it through these horrible, horrible events, which I couldn't even possibly imagine. He spent, 3 years in different death camps and still found new love and became a father and wrote these books. He's a well-known writer. He came up with new what would you call it, like sections of psychiatry. Like he came up with like a new theory based on his interactions there. And if you guys haven't read that book, it's a great book called Man's Search for Meaning is what it's called
Oh,
by Viktor Frankl.
wow.
Yeah, but I know in that article you sent me, I don't know if you noticed, they talked about his story.
I didn't know who they were referring to. I was just like,
That's who he
oh,
is.
okay.
Yeah, so in choosing to accept the fact that change happens and then employ our freedom to decide what we do next, basically.
Yeah. Which is
Yes.
exactly what we're talking about right now. We need to get him on the podcast next.
Well, he's no longer alive.
Damn. Maybe we'll get somebody. I don't know. I tried and I failed, guys. It's fine.
All
I'm
good.
accepting that and we're moving on.
She's accepting the fact that he's gone and we're moving on.
Yep. We're looking towards the future now. Maybe there's a new guy who's going to build on his theories or something.
Well, they still use his theories, so there's that.
Yep. So we'll just talk to any psychologist or whatever.
Yeah, I forget
you get what I'm talking about.
Yeah, and I forget which one he was, if he was a psychiatrist or a psychologist. I think he was a psychiatrist, but he's one of the two.
They're similar. It's fine. It's an acceptable, like, I'm not sure which one.
Yeah. There's, I mean, from what I understand, basically the only difference is one can prescribe medicine. One can't. Yep. Yeah.
So then I was also watching, I guess this goes back to Christmas, huh? So I was also watching and you wouldn't have thought that this inspiration would have came from like a Christmas decor show, but it did, because basically the guy was like, well, you guys are going to go through so many changes because like this woman's getting married. So let's do something all together as a family so that we all feel like involved and like connected. And I thought, wow, like that's actually something that's really great way to like accept the change that's going on, like spending more time while you can with family. And I know that's exactly what you did when you were home before moving to Hawaii.
Absolutely. I went and saw Grandma every Thursday, and I saw you guys whenever I could. And
I think we went out to lunch for a couple times.
Yeah, we did. It was great. Yeah, I really enjoyed it. I think for me, I want to make sure though, did you have anything else with that before I like?
Oh, no. I just thought that was like a great way to like, okay, for like family changes, to do stuff together to help like, accept the change.
Absolutely.
Yes.
So my hardest thing with change is control, which is where my anxiety kind of stems from. The lack of control is what I struggle with the most. So when something changes, it's not necessarily that I don't like the change, it's the lack of say, or like the lack of control, or the lack of input, or whatever you want to call it, that I have in the situation that bugs me more than anything. Because, there's certain situations that it just happens and there's nothing you can do about it.
Yeah. Well, and also in that way, though, the military does give you a little bit of control because you're the one packing up the house. Like, you're in charge of moving your family. They're giving you maybe the means and they're telling you this is where you're going. But for the most part, you're the one who's, okay, we're packing this, not that,
Yeah. It's just hard with stuff like deployments. Like, it's X amount of months long. That's what it is. It's never going to be shorter. It's never going to be longer, really, either, unless something crazy happens. So I try to focus then on just crossing the days off the calendar instead of the fact that it's this long and I have no say. I'm trying to think of other examples, but that's my main tripe with it, which is one of the reasons like I don't like flying. I'm not a huge fan of flying, is because I have absolutely no control in that situation. Yeah, I have absolutely no control in that situation. I'm in a plane. I'm stuck in a small little tube with people that I don't know. And I have no say about when I get off.
Yep. Or like departure, or even when you're taking off, when you're landing, how long you're going to sit on the runway, all those kinds of things.
All those kinds of things. So it's just like we already kind of talked about, figuring out what you can take responsibility for in the situation and trying to like refocus yourself.
I'm sure also kind of like distracting yourself on like flights helps, and meds.
Yeah, and meds. Yeah, that is the only time I take a Xanax, because why the hell not, first of all? And yeah, I don't even need a second of all. Why the hell not?
You're welcome for that. Well, I mean, and I would assume though, like if you were flying home, it helps to like be on the flight and like think of, well, I have to be on this flight because at least when after I get off the flight, I get to see my family. I'm sure that's a little bit helpful. Like, you're not just getting on the flight willy-nilly, you're like, I just decided to go on a flight today. It was like, no. I'm going to go home, see my family, and like the ends justify the means, right?
Yeah, which kind of goes into like the next part of it, which is something that I read before we got on this podcast, talking about your thought patterns and how you might be seeing everything in like very black and white and assume like the worst will occur. But if you take the time to examine your thought pattern and assess how rational they are, you might actually find some space, to change your thinking towards a more like resilient or more relaxed side.
I like that. That's nice. Yeah,
Yeah,
I that's hard to do, and I honestly, that's how I need to change my mom. Is like I need her to I need to convince her that there's like more space, that it's okay, like that there's more positives than negatives. And I think really, I mean, she knows that we're all adults, but I think
mm-hmm.
she's just stuck with, this has been our tradition for X amount of years, basically since we were little. Even when we
Mm-hmm.
moved out, it all stayed the same. And she's
Mm-hmm.
just resistant for that, her family, not family life, but like this family day to change. She's just resistant to that.
It's kind of what we talked about already, that she's kind of stuck in the past instead of looking to
Looking
the
forward.
future. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, like you said, she's still going to get family time. You guys are still going to spend time together. If anything, you're going to get more time together and more relaxed time together if you move
Exactly.
it to Christmas Eve.
Mm-hmm. I know. I'll just have to widen her thinking to have more positive, less black and white. Because it's not
Mm-hmm.
like a yes or no thing. It's not like we're, okay, no more Christmas, F off, That's not what we're saying
Right.
at all.
Right. Exactly. Like you're not trying to tell her, no, we're not doing this at all. We're just moving it a day.
I was actually kind of trying to get her to come over and do it at my house, but I doubt that'll happen.
Yeah,
But I
that might
was
be too much
trying.
for her, but A for effort.
Yeah. Well, because I was trying. Another thing about, so say if we moved it to Christmas Eve, right?
Mm-hmm.
Then I know how her husband is, and he is not very good with hosting people. So, like, I was just trying to take off another anxiety piece of the puzzle,
Mm-hmm.
because he hates Christmas in general. So, like, it's like, just come over to my house, and you don't really have to worry about anything. I'll take care
Yeah.
of it all. Like, it's not that big of a deal.
Yeah, and he can stay home and watch football if he wants to.
Yeah, I don't care. I mean, I know that he wouldn't, but at least if we had it over at my house, he wouldn't be crabby, because he doesn't have to worry about food, putting food on, doing anything
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
at the
just
house or
hanging
any.
out.
Yes. Mm-hmm. All
Yeah.
he has to focus on is going to my house and opening up gifts. But
Mm-hmm.
yes, I do think that that's too big of a jump for her. Like, it's going to have to be like baby steps.
Maybe you could have her, which is another thing that I was thinking of that I've done before that helps, is write down the positives that come from the change. And like maybe if she sees it on a piece of paper, like all the positive things that are coming from the change, it'll give her more of a push to want to.
Yeah, and I think in general, when I start having kids, Mitch and Sarah start having kids, especially, other people, not me. I'm not really a complainer. I would still do it. You know what I mean? I would still
Yeah.
get it done. But it's when you start bringing in kids and when they start to really get into Christmas, I think it's going to be hard to move them so early in the morning. That would
Yeah.
mean I'd have to get my kids up at 6 a.m. Like, if, say, I had a kid, I'd
Mm-hmm.
have to get my kid up at 6 a.m. to unwrap presents here at my house, to then I'll be like, okay, now you can't enjoy any of the gifts that we have just opened. You
Mm-hmm.
now have to go to my mom's house and open, like, there's no way.
You're right. And then, I mean, hopefully grandma's still around, but we're still all going to meet somewhere else too. So then it's like, okay, now you open those
Mhm.
presents. You can't enjoy those either. Now we got to go to a third place.
Exactly.
Yeah, that's a lot.
Hmm. That's why I'm like, Mom, it makes no sense.
Yeah, maybe you need to lay it out to her like that. Sometimes if you give people more of a clear
Oh, I
presentation.
have. I have. I just have to keep on doing it.
Well,
Because
there
I
you
told
go.
her exactly. I told her exactly, like, what happens when we have more kids? It can't
Hmm.
stay like this. And she's fully aware that it will not be able to stay like this for much longer. But like, I'm like, it'll be easier if we change it now versus
Right.
changing it when kids are little.
Right, exactly. Or you have
I don't
newborns and
know.
it's just too much work. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Actually, when me and Tom first started talking about pregnancy and babies, I was like, F all of these because I was super tired of going to 6 different places for Christmas.
I don't
I
blame
was
you.
I was like, F it. Everybody gets to come to us. I'll
Yep.
have like a Christmas open house for all of our family. They can come, see the kids, hang out, then leave.
Yep.
And that way I don't even have to get my kids out of PJs.
Exactly.
But I don't know how realistic it is. So we'll
Well,
see.
you've got some time to figure it out still.
Yeah, considering, I have no kids or babies.
Not yet.
So,
Not yet. The
so
only other aspect of change that I thought that I should go over, because I'm sure I probably have we have other military spouse listeners, at least I hope we do, is the change from when the spouse comes back from deployment, because there's that like readjustment period for a lot of people. I feel like Kyle and I don't have a super hard time. I think just because we've known each other for so long, and I don't know, we just kind of fall back into a rhythm. But I know a lot of our friends struggle initially when they leave, because they leave and you get into a new routine. And then when they come back, it messes up the new routine. And then you have to like get another new routine.
oh, lovely.
So
Yeah.
it's just the change of like, especially for me, like when he leaves, I don't sleep so well at first because you're so used to sleeping in bed with him. So when they first leave, even like the first month, you're like, oh, can't do this. And then I feel like I'm finally getting used to like him being gone, and then he comes back, and then you're doing it the opposite way. Like, okay, now I'm
Yeah.
not alone again. Let's
Now I have
readjust
to
the
stay
other
on
way.
my side. Now I have to stay on my side of the bed.
Yeah, and it's a lot hotter in here because there's another body. But I mean, it's good things. It's good things. But it's just
Yeah.
readjusting. And obviously, if you have more kids, it gets a little more complicated. Who's taking him to school, who's making the lunches, who's picking him up from school. So there's a lot adjusting, basically, just in general, of who's doing what and what roles are being reestablished.
And then for
So
the military spouse, going back to like regular civilian life for the most part. I mean, you
yeah,
know what I mean? Besides
all those
actually having
things.
to go to work, but also like just going to the grocery store and being like a regular civilian.
Yeah, you go from basically handling everything in the household back to having somebody to share it with, which is great because it takes the stressor off. It's just finding that balance again. So
Mm.
I guess just my tip, I guess, is just to take it easy. Don't stress each other out. You already spent however many months apart. So take your time falling back into a rhythm, talk to each other, figure out what works. And, you don't have to the first day instantly be back on a schedule. Take your time, figure out what works again, see what works in your schedule and their schedule, and just know it's
It's
not
that
an instant thing.
it's that whole communication thing, really.
Right, like we've talked about 100 times
Mhm.
before.
A
The
million
communication
times.
things, yeah. The
It's
communication
kind of
thing,
important.
and just not stressing. I feel like a lot of people stress themselves out when they first come home, like, oh, well, we were in this routine and he came back and now he's thrown everything off. And it's like, well, don't look at it in a negative. Look at it as like, yeah, your routine maybe got thrown off, but now you have more help.
Do you think it's a lot so what's your opinion on like, do you stress about stress? Because that was like another tip in that article, was like, don't stress about having the stressor. Like, don't do any of that. Like,
Yeah,
just kind of accept the change. Just don't stress about it.
I feel like I don't stress about it. I'm just so happy that he's back that if I don't sleep for a couple days, whatever, he's back and he's off work anyway. And he can get up with the kid. But I mean, our kid's older now that he pretty much gets up on his own and he knows how to turn on the TV. He knows how to make his own breakfast. He doesn't wake us up. So, like, if you have younger kids, it's probably another story because you have
Or
two younger
more.
kids or more that are running around. So I get that, but that's when you can be like, you're back. It's your turn.
Hell yeah. That's how I would be for sure. It's also kind of one of the reasons why I semi picked mine and Tom's schedule, where I work 9 to 5:30 and he works 2 to 10, because I'm like, well, this will be easy for when we have a kid, because you have the mornings with them, I have nights. Like, you're
Mhm.
kind of just like trading off the responsibility a little bit, because I'm still here working from home, so really I can help with anything. It's just,
Yeah.
you know.
And my parents were essentially the same way. My dad worked during the day and my mom worked at night. So it was the same thing. Like there was occasionally when I was older, like an hour in the middle of the day where they, you know, he left too early and she wasn't, and she had
Late
already
enough.
left. So I had to like be with a babysitter for like an hour. But I mean, whoop de doo.
Yeah, exactly.
And yeah,
Okay.
so I definitely don't personally stress about the stress because just be happy and be in the moment. Like, yes, things are changing and it's hard, but like we talked about, focus on the positives. Your husband's back. You get to spend time together. You can make up for lost time, all the good things.
I mean, and that's how you would hopefully be about all change.
We would hope, right?
I do love the, like, when I read this article, I absolutely love the idea of like writing down your values to help see you past and like rise above the change. I just thought that that was like, we've talked about writing like thoughts and dreams and different things down, but I thought that that was like really, it's kind of like your pro and con list. You know, I'm like,
Mm-hmm.
I think I really connect with that because I have done many a pro con list before. So I'm like, I get like, I really connected with that one.
No, I like that. I like the idea of writing down your values. And again, that's kind of like what I said, like with your mom, letting her see like the list of the positives of the reasons to change it. So that's another
Sleep
good
in,
way.
woo!
There you go, sleep in. Well, and some people, like myself and Connie, are very visual people. So seeing it written on a piece of paper or on your computer or however you want to write it makes a big difference because you can actually see it in front of you instead of it just being
In
a
your
thought in your
mind.
mind. Yeah.
I mean, and that's why, like, sometimes when I don't see things, like, that's why, like, then I go over things in my mind, like, I end up overthinking when I don't necessarily, like, visualize the pro and cons. Then I keep on going over and over the same points, which is not
Yeah.
really as helpful.
No, it's not. And you're just driving yourself crazy and exhausting your mind. And yeah, no, you don't need to do all that.
And that's also like, that's when I find myself having like a sleepless night or whatever, because you're thinking, and that's like when I'm always like thinking is when I'm going over like the same like list of like pros and cons or something like
Yep.
that, you know.
Yeah, but you're going over it again and again because you can't see it. So you're trying to remember, like, okay, which side had more? And,
Yes, exactly. Anyway, so I think that's how to deal with some changes, because there's like a lot. Oh, another really funny thing before we go into my little roundup, I suppose. um Tom, he has such a hard time dealing with the change of the masks. He always has it in his car, and like we end up getting out of the car, he doesn't have the mask, and I'm like, mask. He's like, like he gets all frustrated and then goes into his car, gets his mask. He's like, I hate these things. I just want to go back to normal. I
No,
think
I
it's
feel him on
very
that. I
funny.
I was like that for the first, I don't know, month or so. It was the same thing. And it's like you walk halfway into the store and then you're like, shit.
Yep, basically. You're halfway into the store and you're like, oh, wait a minute. And
Yeah,
then
I
it's like, oh,
actually,
great. I look like an asshole. Gotta go back and
yeah,
get the mask, I guess.
I actually walked into like one of the takeout restaurants here on base with that one on. And the lady was like, where's your mask? And I'm like, I'm sorry. Don't yell at me. Hold on. I'll be back.
Like, I didn't mean it.
Like this,
I'm used to not having a mask on.
yeah, I
Strange as
went
it may seem.
I went 34 years without a mask. I'm really confused right now.
Exactly. Takes me a minute, okay? But yes, Tom is the same way. So
I
deal
feel
with
you,
your
Tom.
changes, people. Exactly. We all feel it, honestly. So, don't stress about your stress. Write down your values, have a good sense of humor, and just fight for your future and what you want in life and get past the change to the other side where there will be more change. Because once one thing changes, it's going to happen over and over again. Nothing is constant. Unlike my name.
I was going to say, but you are.
It's literally in the name.
Mm-hmm.
So this is how to deal when shit gets real. And hopefully you learned something about changing. Check us out on the social medias. Leave us comments. We love to hear from you. And have a good day.